Terminator Salvation is the fourth installment of the Terminator series. John Connor leads the resistance in a fight against Skynet, a company that has manufactured Terminators and is taking over the world. In many parts, Terminator is a horror film. These horrific machines, I mean, they're scary and they attack, you know, and that's one of the things we kept in mind when we were making the film. Under McG's direction, he said, this is, you know, we're making a horror film as well as a sci-fi. The goal with the Terminators was to make them sound strong and powerful. I made a point not to use any servos, none of your traditional sort of robotic sounds. Recorded a lot of metal stressing, had things like, had a log splitter and slowly compressed metal to get like a, you know, just a very intense crushing, grinding sound, and then used those sounds to process them to create the motions and articulate all the movements for the different Terminators.
Hey!
Come with me if you want to live.
As you look at the Terminator film, you're constantly seeing debris blowing, and it's bouncing off metal and canvas and various things. It's a very dusty, dirty world, and it was important to me to capture all of that detail, so it just brought you in close to every little shot, and you felt that texture. So one of the things to achieve that, we got a blower and hooked it up to a variac, which allows us to change the speed of the blower on the outside of a sound stage and drag the hose through the stage, and then built a tent inside a stage where we set up a space where we could blow sand, ground up walnuts, ground almonds, and hit it against metal and glass and canvas and get really articulate debris sounds that we could then pan and trace through the winds so you would feel everything the wind was touching. When you're conceiving how you're going to design a sound effect or you hear something in your mind, then you got to figure out how to get it out, how to make it happen. In designing the sound for Terminator, we did a lot of recording. We went to Aguila Bend, Arizona, and worked with the military, recorded the A-10s. Incredible experience having control over these jets flying around and as they're firing these massive weapons. There was so many different ways of going about building the sounds. And the goal here was to create a signature Terminator sound, a Skynet sound that applied to the whole family, yet they were all kind of utilized differently. I did a lot of processing with analog guitar pedals. Used like an odd ring modulating wah pedal called a snarling dog mold spore, and did a lot of audio processing through that. For me, on all films, and especially on something like Terminator, it's a process of discovery. You start somewhere and then you discover another level, another idea, and something else infuses and it evolves. For example, the Moto Terminators, from concept, were these futuristic bikes, and they had sort of this sound that we'd never heard before. And we developed a lot of these types of sounds, but they were just a little too slick. They weren't that nasty, mean sound, which they needed. And it was kind of, even McG was saying, we need Harleys, you know, and I was like, well, they can't do Harleys, you know, they won't have the cadence that you need for a bike of that type. But I knew what he meant, so we ended up going out and getting a Ducati and a MV Agusta race bike, modifying exhausts. We built a dyno on a trailer, drove it out to the middle of the desert so we could record these bikes without any reflections, and that was the beginning of the Moto Terminators. But it had to go through this development, this process. McG is a huge fan of picture and sound, and until those two things are together, his image isn't really there. It's only once we've done a pass on a scene that he's cut does he begin to start to dig in. And he's got the great gift of letting you do what you do, and then coming back and then taking you to a place you didn't expect to go. And that's a great thing with a director. Lets you develop an idea and then says, what about this? And all of a sudden you're seeing something that you didn't notice, you know, or you're trying something that you inherently wouldn't have done.